Mr. A, Mr. J, welcome to my humble abode. Please join me while Congress decides on our Declaration of Independence. Heaven knows we spent enough time on that. And I invited you here for a specific purpose. As they're going through the Declaration, the next step is going to be what we're going to do for the government of our area. And many years ago, I had an opportunity, right after the French and Indian War, to travel from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, basically for the English postal system. But while I was there, I met a couple of men who were in fact part Haudenosaunee, and they were heading north with the idea of going to the Haudenosaunee Great Council that was about to happen. And they invited me along, and of course, I decided to join them. By the time we got up there, they obviously wouldn't let me attend the Great Council meeting, but they introduced me to a Onondaga who had been a white sachem of the Great Council. And we sat down to talk, and I was given the opportunity to discuss government with him. Now, the Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, is made up of 5 language groups of people. The Mohawks, who are in fact the western gate to the Confederation. The Oneida, which is the next people to the west, who are considered the little brothers to the Mohawks. Then in the center, the Onondaga, who are the keepers of the council flame, the keepers of the Great Law of Peace flame, where the council always meets. And then to the west of them is the Cayugas, who are the little brothers to the furthest west people, which are the Seneca. Now, all these people have common language groups, but they all have differences between their languages. And what's interesting is, although the council is based on the 5 language groups and the 5 members of the chain, and actually a 6th group, the Tuscarora, who joined them in early 1720s when things got too difficult for them in Georgia, where they were having trouble not only with the colonists but also with other first peoples in that area. So they moved north, and the first place they found that had room for them was in fact the southern part of the Haudenosaunee area, and they were accepted and ultimately adopted as a whole language group society within the 5 nations, and were in fact the 6th nation. However, they never changed the council setup. The Tuscarora were actually represented by the Oneida representatives on the Haudenosaunee Council. It's very complicated, hard to understand, especially when I tell you that the representatives don't represent the language groups. They actually represent the clans within each language group. So the Mohawks might have 9 or 10 clans within the Mohawk language group in the various villages, and it's each of those clans select a representative to be on the council. Same with the Oneida, who might only have 2 or 3. The Tuscarora might have 1 representative among the Oneida that is on the clan. The Onondaga basically are the mediators, and then the Cayuga and the Seneca, which would have each of their clans would have representatives. And the clan members are actually representing that clan, such as the Wolf clan, rather than representing just the language group of the Mohawks, or the Oneidas, or the Cayugas. So the clans become very important. And the representatives aren't elected by the individuals within the clans. Each village clan, the men and the women vote as to who will be the cherished grandmothers of their clan. And that's how their government works, with the cherished grandmothers being the mediators, and the men and the women making decisions and then discussing it with the cherished grandmothers to develop the requirements of the clan. Now, the cherished grandmothers of each village of a clan, such as the Wolf clan, will gather together, and together they will elect 3 or 5, an odd number of cherished grandmothers to represent the clans of all the villages, and they're the ones that actually appoint the representative that serves for that clan on the Haudenosaunee Great Council of Peace, Great Law of Peace Council. That means that you have 9 coming from the Mohawks and only 3 coming from the Oneida. There might be a problem, but there isn't, because unlike what we've always seen, on the Haudenosaunee Great Council, every decision has to be unanimous. So it doesn't matter whether you're representing 6 different clans, 9 different clans, or 3 different clans, because everybody representing all the clans has to come to agreement, or it doesn't become passed by the council. And that's rather a confusing issue in itself, which you really should know more about the clan setup, because the clan setup isn't just the clans within the Mohawk. If you're a wolf clan in any of the Haudenosaunee societies, you are all related closer to those other clans in other language areas than you are to other clans within your own village. And since they were a matrilineal society, where the children were based on the mothers, not the fathers stayed with their clans. It was the children that went with the mother's clan, and it was the uncles and the brothers that raised the children along with the mothers and the aunts and the cherished grandmothers. Totally different than what we've got. Now, that means if I am a member of the Mohawk Wolf Clan and I move south to the Shawnee and I meet a member of the Wolf Clan in a Shawnee village, they would accept me, even though they've never met me, they would accept me as a family member, as a cousin. And they would feed me and clothe me, and I would hunt and work with them, and whatever efforts I put out, normally in my clan, I would put out for that clan, and they would be relatives. And that would be true if I continued on down to the Cherokee, to the Creek, if I went over to the Osage on the other side of the Mississippi River. No matter what clan, what village or language group I was at, I would meet clan members who were in fact my relatives, and they considered me their relatives. So I had a safety place throughout the entire United States, or excuse me, throughout the entire American continent. The interesting point of that is that, I forget what the interesting point of that is. So, the clans were actually closer related than the various clans within the village. Even though the father was a member of a different clan, they didn't consider them part of the clan. So they had no relationship with the father. The uncles and the brothers were the people who took the position that the father did in the European society. This all fascinated me, and so I asked, well, how do the cherished grandmothers decide on the proper representatives for their groups? And the Onondaga farmer White Sashim explained it to me, and I tried to write it down in a way that I could understand it and you can understand it as well. And I have that here, which is what I wanted to share with you. The Haudenosaunee Great Law of Peace, or Great Law, which predates our society by centuries, the English society, gives specific qualifications for representatives in a democratic Republican government, primarily but not only in Article 28. The following are my understanding of the Great Law regarding selecting representatives. Representatives shall be mentors of the people, be honest, exercise justice in all their actions, look and listen for the welfare of the whole people, always have in view both the present and coming generations, have hearts full of peace and goodwill, have minds filled with a yearning for the welfare of the people, carry out their duties with endless patience, voice their opinions with calm deliberations, temper their firmness with a tenderness for the people, prove themselves devoid of anger, offensive actions, and criticism. Not allow anger nor fury to cloud their minds. Not become entangled in trivial actions. And not put self-interest over the needs of the people. In the English system that we've been working with, the English Parliament system is based on power and control obtained through argument and bully politics based on the number of votes controlled. That's the direction our colonies have been going in at this moment. The Haudenosaunee Great Law is based on unanimous approval arrived at through compromise. And I would like us to push that forward as a better basis of our government on the colonies than the English parliamentary process. But there's another point that we're going to need to do to make sure that works, since we're used to the English parliamentary process. And I recently wrote this up after working with you and Thomas on the Declaration of Independence. And I call this a Declaration of Interdependence. I acknowledge and accept the self-evident truths that each responsible adult has equal, inalienable rights and responsibilities. Among the rights are the right to life, the right to liberty, the right to the pursuit of happiness, the right to freedom of choice, and the right to support from society for our needs, safety, health, and inalienable rights in return for our efforts supporting the inalienable rights of society. Among the responsibilities are the responsibility to respect the inalienable rights of others, responsibility to treat others as I would want to be treated, responsibility to share freely with those in need that which I could live without, the responsibility to consider how my choices impact others, including posterity, and the responsibility to allow a reasonable portion of the value of my efforts to supporting and protecting society, including other responsible adults, children, unaccountable adults, infirm adults, and outsiders. I further acknowledge and accept that society requires a form of government that ensures the common good of the individuals, including children, unaccountable adults, infirm adults, and outsiders, and the common good of society. I believe that every representative selected to serve in the new government for the colonies should be required to read this out loud, or a reasonable form of it out loud, and to sign it before they take office. And then to allow the people to be able to review their decisions on each action individually and determine whether they are living up to their promise for the interdependence of all of us. And only after they've decided that they have, or if they decide they haven't lived up to their promise, I believe the people should at that time have the right to take them out of office and replace them with someone who is better qualified for the job. So this is something for us to think about as they're voting on the Declaration, and we're getting ready for the next step of the colonies. Thank you.